Can't say too, like you know what I can do. Got a game for you today, which is the last match of the regular season for Team Covenant Aces. Oh no, I left my sound on. There we go. And there are some ramifications and implications, a lot at stake here at the last game, but before we get into it, let me go ahead and introduce my little partner to you here, the one and only, the incomparable Lyle A. Hurst, a.k.a. Sozen. What up, Sozen?
Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm doing great. So, I'm sorry,
I
this
should
is
mention
not
I'm
the
joined here by
definitive...
my 4-year-old daughter, who... Catherine, want to say hi? Say hi, buddy.
Hi.
Right, she's a future X-Wing champion.
She can learn a lot by watching this game. I hope she's paying close attention.
Yeah, no doubt.
So this is not the this is not the final match, but this is the last week. We're about halfway through, but there is a lot at stake here. For Kelvan, obviously, he's trying to avoid what's the word? Elimination from the league, should I say? And then for Paul, he can clinch a spot in the playoffs with a win. If he doesn't win, he's basically got to hope for Morgan to lose. Is that all correct?
Yeah, that sounds right to me. And let's see, Sideslip is also hoping that Kelvin loses, because then he won't get eliminated from the league. And I'll also mention that we're lucky enough to have the regular season champion on the cast with us. Congratulations on going 8-3 and taking it down, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, good stuff.
So, and then another aside was we have I believe it was you that made the comment right out here in the open. We had Paul Heaver's World Championship list right here under all our noses. No one thought to... I don't believe anyone else brought this list to Worlds, to my knowledge. And maybe... I'm sure Paul play-tested it some. I don't think he play-tested this specific list as extensively as he did his last two Worlds lists. So maybe we could ask him if he has lost with it before. I would bet someone from Nova Squadron beat him a time or two, like maybe Ira or someone, but still, for Kelvan to be able to beat it in front of all these people watching, that'd still be a pretty good accomplishment, eh?
Yeah, so Paul did a warm-up tournament, and I think he went undefeated with this list, and then he won 8 in a row in Worlds, followed by another 3 in a row? 4 in a row?
4 in a row, yeah.
Right, so he's 15-0 with this list?
Well, if he won 12 in a row at Worlds, and then how many did he win at the...
I think he went 3-0 in his warm-up list.
Wow, so 15-0.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask him right now.
Papa got me on. Which one has a new thing?
All right, so just looking at it on paper, Lyle, let me bring him up real quick. Everyone knows what Paul's list is, obviously, but I'll just go ahead. And here it is. We got Poe Dameron, VI, R2D2 Auto Thrusters, Gold Squadron, typical Stress Hog, TLT, R3A2 BTL, another Gold Squad, TLT, and then just a Naked Bandit against Kelvan's 2 prototypes with Chardon, 2 Golds with TLT, and then a Naked Blue. Pretty even matchup. Might like Paul a little bit more, I would say, because there's no stress mechanics. There's no control on Kelvan's side to really shut down Poe, as well as the fact that Paul's got 2, 2, 2, and 10, and Kelvan's got a couple of 1s in there. So just on paper alone, Lyle, if you were to play someone, a Phantom opponent, and you had to pick one of these lists to go against the other, which one would you prefer?
Yeah, I think you're right that Paul's got the edge with his list because of the lack of stress mechanic and the PS advantage. However, I think Ricky, if he can get some good blocks in with those prototypes, then he can strip Poe down to parts pretty fast between the 2 golds and the blues. So for Ricky to win this, he's got to get some good blocks in with those A's.
Yeah. So Paul says he lost once to Ron Brannon, who... That was the Canadian national champion last year, I believe, even though he's not from Canada, I don't think, running his standard 4 blues and a bandit. And Paul says Rebel Swarms are probably the best list for taking it down, or maybe 4 TLTs. Ace lists are the ones he prefers to fight, obviously, because he's got a PS10 and a Stress Hog. But he played the Polish national champ in 4, I believe that was round the final 8 at Worlds.
Yeah, I sat right next to that game and watched
Yeah.
the whole thing.
And I actually ran into the guy at a restaurant afterwards, and he didn't kind of spoke a little broken English, but sounded like he just went for Poe from the outset and just wasn't able to get enough damage through, and then Poe was able to just run and regenerate. Is that how it went down from your point of view?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, so Paul did his standard strategy of setting up a really dense asteroid field right in the middle, and then he basically navigated his ships right through it, and managed to trap all of the Polish national champions' ships in the bottom, the southeast corner of the map, and then Poe just had some incredible TLT evading rolls. Like two rounds in a row, his focus, his ability to use that focus token without spending it came through.
Yes.
Poevasion, I think it's called.
Yep. Well, I was honestly very close to bringing Poe myself with like Predator and auto thrusters and R5P9 because I had really not done well against TLTs going into a World, so that's what I was really worried about. And yeah, you figure if it's 4 ships with TLT and they all only have one action, a focus or a target lock, on average they're only going to get 3 hits twice on those 8 shots. So you figure those are auto hits on Poe, but as far as the rest, as long as the only times he's not going to evade 2 shots is if he rolls double focus or double blank. And even if with Paul, if it's like double focus at the end there, he typically could just spend it. So Poe can definitely dodge a lot of those TLT shots. Just that with auto thrusters active anyway, I mean, that would just be a very frustrating game to play, I would think. 4 golds against Poe. And I guess we'll see it in action here. I haven't really witnessed that yet myself, but...
Yeah, I think that's an important point about the auto thrusters is that Ricky's got to keep Poe in arc.
Yes, definitely.
Which is what happened to the Polish national champion. He couldn't keep Poe in arc, and Poe was just able to use the auto thrusters and his ability to just dodge everything. Which is one of my problems with golds rocking the TLT title or the TLT upgrade is that once they spend their first focus, their second roll is naked.
Yeah.
So it never feels as good to me as the scum version with like an aggro mech.
And I had experimented some with, when we were talking with Sable, how he was talking about the BTL title just on some naked thugs. And even that, I'm really not as high on that as I was. Like, the Stress Hog is obviously awesome because it's double stress as long as you get someone in arc at range 2 to 3. But, yeah, with that BTL, it's just like... Because you want, the sweet spot is really like range 2, because if you're shooting at range 3 of something, often it's got auto thrusters, so it's going to be able to dodge that. And it's just really hard to get someone in arc at that range 2. And then, yeah, you can shoot your primary, but I mean, that's only 2 dice. And then the rest is just pretty much unmodified almost. So unless you're shooting at something with like super low agility, yeah, I'm not as crazy about that BTL just on the scum ships as I once was. I think if I was to run something with TLT, I would probably lean towards more of that lawnmower list you ran earlier in the season, the Rebel Operatives with Recon, because yeah, so often as well you can save that focus, that second focus for defense too. I think I would lean more towards something like that.
Yeah, agreed. It's got more punch. But, it's hard to argue against a gold with TLT when it just won the World Championship, so...
Very true. Okay.
Alright, so rocks are coming down.
Yeah, it looks like Kelvan decided to take initiative. And I think typically you see people when there's like pilot skill, they usually want to pass it. It will depend. But like if you think it's going to be a jousting match, maybe you might want to take it so you can maybe block them up first. But in this situation, maybe Kelvan just feels like the lack of repositional abilities from the Bandit and the 2 golds, as well as his 2 golds, is really initiative rules is really not going to come into effect as far as move, see where your opponent's at, and then, boost or barrel roll, because none of these ships can really do that other than the blue, so maybe that's where he's thinking.
Yeah, we see from the asteroids here that Ricky's kind of playing into Paul's strategy and creating a big lumpy mess right in the middle.
They're both just kind of jamming him in there. So this is most likely not going to be a lot of formation flying, which sort of benefits Poe, I feel like. He wants Ricky's ships spread out so he cannot concentrate fire on them, so he can just keep regenerating over and over again.
He does. It also makes it harder for those A-Wings to get in good blocks because they have to maneuver around the asteroids.
So Ricky and Lyle both predicting Kelvan. Now this was before the World Championship, before we all realized this was the absolutely definitive best possible list out there, which is something I wanted to talk about too with you, Sozin, is so many people I feel like are so just like locked in on the idea of just trying to find the perfect list. And we all know it's a balance between playing well and gaming the meta, but I feel like this list, what Paul's got, he pretty much said it's just a bunch of solid ships, and I asked him as much the night before, and he might have just been feeding me something, but I'm inclined to believe he was genuine, just from what I know about him and just the way he was talking to me. But he really felt like he, last year with deciding to put R2-D2 on Han, obviously that was just a brilliant adjustment for the meta, but he didn't feel like he really had anything special going. He just thought it was a solid list, and I think it's just another example of where it really just comes down to flying. I mean, predicting the meta definitely plays a part, but overall, I feel like it's more just about getting some critical dice when you need it, but then just outflying your opponent for the most part.
Yeah, I tend to agree, but I would add a few more things. One, Paul, if you look at all 3 World Championships he's won, it's always been a 4-ship Rebel build. He did it with, let's see, Biggs and 3...
Biggs, a rookie, and 2 daggers.
There you go, yeah. That was Biggs Walk the Dog, his first one. Second one was Han and 3 Talas. And then third one is the list we're seeing flown here tonight.
So would you say that's more coincidental? Would you say part of it is Paul's bread and butter is typically Rebels?
I think it's not only is it Rebels, but it's 4-ship Rebels. So that's the first thing. He's very comfortable flying it. And 2, I think that the TLT Stress Hog is particularly good in the current meta. We saw that in the finals game against the kid, Nathan, where Nathan basically just ran in terror with Corrin. Like, he's just, I gotta get away from the Stress Hog.
Papa, look.
So...
Look at it.
So...
I made that.
So I do think that the kind of one outstanding feature here is the TLT Stress Hog, and 2, it's that Bandit. There's a lot of three ship versions of Paul's list, and you can just upgrade the other ships, or you could swap in Miranda, for example. But that having that extra ship really was the. I watched 3 or 4 of his games during the World Championship, and the Bandit always did yeoman's work. So I think that is the real edge here, is that 4th ship.
Yep. It's kind of funny when I was playing Paul, he was looking at my list and he saw that I had a Tala mix in there, and he was like, "Oh, you must have had 1 point left over." I was like, "Yeah, pretty much." That's pretty much was the decision throwing that in there. For 1 point, really, I feel like overall, if you don't have an EPT to spend, for 1 point up to a 2 to a 4, especially in the meta, I feel like that's pretty much the best way you can go, really. Okay, so looks like a bit of an interesting formation with Kelvan. So he does kind of jam him in. And yeah, he's got him faced away. Interesting. Gonna be interesting to see where Paul goes with Poe here. Is he gonna try to navigate those rocks? I would be inclined to think he does.